Welcome to Season 10 of the Parenting Aces Podcast. We are proud members of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, and I have a fellow Tennis Channel Podcast Network podcaster as my guest this week. Alex Gruskin of Cracked Racquets joins us, and I'm super excited to have him share with all of you the Cracked Racquets story and Cracked Racquets' latest project, Project Elite, which any of you have been following the name, image, likeness Supreme Court decision will be very interested to hear what Alex and his gang are up to in that regard. Before I bring Alex on, though, just a quick reminder, if you haven't become a premium member of Parenting Aces yet, we'd love to have you. Just go to ParentingAces.com and click on the join button. We've got that website scrolling across the bottom right now. If you are listening to this podcast on one of the podcast apps and would like to see the video version because you want to see what Alex Gruskin actually looks like in person, go to ParentingAces.com. You can see the video version there, or the Parenting Aces YouTube channel has all of our video podcasts available for you to watch. So that said, I'm going to just take our little ticker off the screen. I'm going to bring Alex on, and I'm so excited, Alex. I feel like we've talked to each other more in the last 2 weeks than in the last year, but welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. Season 10 sounds daunting, but that is so cool to hear. I refer to you as the pod mother on our Cracked Racquets shows. It's always good when you get to spend a lot of time with your pod mother, with your real mother, whatever it may be. Yesterday actually happened to be my real mom's birthday, and I called her and she goes, "Alex, that Lisa Stone was fantastic." And I'm not going to do an impression of her because she'll listen to, "Alex, that Lisa Stone, she was so fantastic." But I always appreciate getting the chance to chat with you, and I appreciate you having me on the show today.
So just wondering what I have to do to earn the nickname Fairy Pod Mother. You have to start wearing a crown or something?
I mean, it would be a good look for you. You could pull it off. There's no denying that. So. I'm happy. Look, I tell these college coaches all the time right now, I'm wearing the native Michigan gear. A lot of them have been kind enough to send me gear from their schools. We rep it on our shows. I'm very bribable, Lisa. One Parenting Aces hat. I'll call you whatever you need me to call you.
You got it. It's on its way. As soon as I get back to SoCal where my stash is, I will stick one in the mail. Alex, I want to start by just having you give us kind of a little bit of your history in tennis, because you took a different pathway than a lot of junior players take. And I think it's interesting for parents to hear about that.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I will try and be brief because whenever I talk about my tennis, inevitably I get carried away. Those who are watching this on the video will see my club tennis picture in the background. Sometimes I can't help myself. But no, it was a bit unconventional for me. I really thrived in the team environment for tennis. In particular, high school tennis meant a lot to me. I suppose the long story short version, I was a chubby kid growing up, very loved, big boned, according to my grandmother, which I'm sure is something you will laugh at. But, I made, my older brother made varsity as a freshman. So I was like, well, that's the benchmark. Obviously, I have to do that. I was able to do it, but I didn't really play as a freshman on the team. And that was kind of frustrating to me. And so I worked really hard my sophomore year, lost a bunch of weight, helped that I hit puberty, got a lot better at tennis. That was the first summer I beat my brother in straight sets. And I looked at him, I go, "Eric, I'm never losing to you again." And he kind of laughed. Can I swear? I won't swear. I won't swear.
No, don't swear. It's Parenting Aces.
Something along the lines of, shut the puck up. And so from there, that season went well for me. I remember orientation. My mom will like this story. A girl who I had always been fond of said, "Wow, Alex, you look really good." And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And so, I obviously thanked tennis for that as well. And just, I always enjoyed the tennis environment. I always felt comfortable there. I feel like tennis players, particularly when you're a junior, you speak a certain language, whether it's, "Oh, that guy is treeing. I know what that means. You know what that means." If I say this TV show is treeing or whatever, I can refer to tennis things in other realms of life, and it just makes sense. And I always felt comfortable there. And some of my closest friends I met through the tennis world. And, For me, I always say a doubles partnership is like a relationship. And like, I am still super close with every person I played doubles with in high school. And my doubles partner, Max Rothman, is who I started our initial Great Shot podcast with. And my high school teammate, Max Fliegner, was our initial producer. And so I was always very close to the tennis world. I got better. Like, one of my favorite games. I'm a lot better, I think, than some of our podcast listeners think at tennis, but I'm not good. Like, I'm not bad. If it's a binary system, good or bad, because you can see some people aren't good.
Sure.
I would casually, people be like, oh, you played tennis. And fun anecdote, I apologize, I'm going on a rant here, but yesterday at the grocery store, this is a big deal for me, Lisa. I'm checking out, I'm getting my groceries, and the kind lady bagging my groceries says, hey, were you an athlete? And I was like, oh my God, they think I'm an athlete, Lisa. I was like, kind of, why do you ask? And then she goes, oh, because you're dressed like one. I was like, no. I was like, come on, no. You mean it's because of my physique? But all of that is to say, I wasn't good enough to play at a school that I wanted to go to. My parents went to Michigan. My older brother went to Michigan. I went to a smaller private school. I was ready for a big school atmosphere. And thankfully, I was able to play club tennis there and keep it as a part of my life, meet so many of my closest friends. And, we had some success. We won a club national championship. You win a national championship in anything. The hubris you get from that, you're going to think you can do a lot of things. And one of those things I thought I could do was start a podcast. And I guess that gets us to Cracked Racquets. I don't know if that's enough on the tennis side, but for me, it was
perfect.
Yeah. My dad says, I guess the last anecdote, because it is Parenting Aces, and my dad will be super excited that I referenced him. We went to, I'm glad
to know there is a dad, because you always only talk about your mom.
Oh, my dad's not that interesting. He thinks imagine me, but like a more refined version. Like if he went to law school and we're in corporate law and like had a filter, that would be him, minus the walking around the underwear in the morning. But well, I guess I do that too. Point is, we're at, I won't say which college, but we were at a Division III school that was kind enough to be looking at me. And we went out and visited. And my dad goes, Alex, I knew within 3 seconds of walking on that campus that you were not playing Division III tennis. He was like, when they said, oh, and here's the downtown, and you were like, oh, there's one restaurant, and you were like, Ann Arbor, this is like the corner store. Yeah. And he knew then, I knew then, college tennis wasn't for me to play, but it was certainly for me to dive, I suppose, my life into.
Yeah. And you have done just that. You guys started Cracked Racquets, 4 years ago now?
2017, August 2017. So I guess
exactly.
Yeah, like season 4, season 5.
Yeah, which is awesome. And you and I still haven't met in person, but you've been on the podcast. Huh?
This counts,
I guess. But at some point post-COVID, we will be in the same place at the same time, and I'll get to give you a hug, and that will formalize the relationship right there. But I did get to meet Dalton in person and interview him. He's been on the podcast a couple times. He is one of your business partners. And can you just share with our audience how Cracked Racquets came to be? Was Great Shot first? Was Cracked Racquets first? How did those come together?
It was simultaneous. For my end, the Great Shot podcast, which was the very first podcast we had at Cracked Racquets, or at least that I was hosting, came immediately after we won our club tennis national championship my senior year, 2017, in college. After that, I knew I wasn't going pro, but I really wanted to keep tennis in my life. And this is not meant to be disrespectful to people who feed balls for a living, because that's the majority of the tennis ecosystem. Without tennis pros, I love tennis because I love my coaches growing up more than anything in the world, whether from Joe Brennan to Ed Nagel, Josh Molino. They have done more for me than any 3 individuals that aren't my parents out there. And, again, that love of tennis, I didn't want to keep feeding balls. I had a real world job, and I was like, I don't really want to do that on weekends, but I would love to keep tennis in my life somehow. And respectfully, not to build myself, I was always good at talking tennis. Like some people have skills. For me, that was it. I was at the club tennis tournaments, wherever it may be. That was my thing. I follow it very closely, and I always enjoy talking. I like to think I can have fun with it. And so this was,
and you have an unbelievable recall of matches, stats, tournaments, players' histories. Colette's columns. You
Yeah.
quote from old zoo tennis columns all the time. I mean, I don't know if it's just because you're in your 20s and your brain's still fresh, but it boggles my mind when I hear you start spewing stats.
Well, thank you. This is where my dad would go, yeah, but you should see his biology grade. Which I was fine. I just I do not care that, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Like, that's irrelevant to me.
See, you remember that.
Yeah, well, selective memory is what my dad calls it. He's like, you remember what you want to remember. I'll tell you, send me your freaking W-2 and you haven't sent it to me in 6 months. But no, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, look, those 2011 Virginia team, when you were coming of age in the 2010s, right, as YouTube and stuff is getting popping, I was looking for any and all tennis highlights, and college tennis in particular, because it was the team format and I was playing high school tennis and I was interested in college tennis. I was looking for whatever I could. And Virginia men's tennis had the best highlights in the world, like the best. I could tell you everything, I would say 2009 onwards, about Virginia men's tennis till the end of their run, 2017, from Somdev through to Carl Soderlund, just that era of Virginia tennis, because that was it. So I've watched those videos 100 times. I've told Colette this. I have Noah Rubin playing at the Pan American Championship using the head gold liquid metal. Like, I've seen that video 100 times.
Why do you know that?
Well, one would hope, watching it as frequently as I have, that you would remember those things, I guess is why I would say it. And so all of this is to say I had takes. And 2017 was a really fun time to be a tennis fan, because we were on the precipice of next-gen faces are starting to emerge. Zverev, Tsitsipas, guys who are my age, who I grew up following. And just, you also, of course, have the big three at the end as well. And in 2017, there weren't 500 tennis podcasts. There were 5. There were, there were you. There was the tennis podcast. Tennis.com had theirs, No Challenges Remaining, which I listened to religiously when I was a little bit tipsy on my rides back to North Campus as a freshman in college. And I just thought I could do it. And I know that takes a little hubris. I think your listeners will have learned in the first 10 minutes. I don't lack in that. No. But you have to, right? Whatever you're trying, you have to believe in yourself. And so I went to my doubles partner, Max Rothman, who is red of hair. I'll moving my head to the left so you can see him. Red of hair. I convinced everyone at club tennis that we called him the Red Rifle, because he's got a huge serve and he has red hair. And everyone believed it, and they went with it. And I was like, come on, we'll call you the Red Rifle. We'll do this podcast. We'll have some fun with it.
I love it.
And he was like, sure, why not? And then all this is to say, we did French Open 2017 was our dry run. Episode was okay. It was good enough to where it's let's record another one, but let's be serious. First episode we did, 2017, Marin Cilic crying at the Wimbledon final, which I'm not trying to make fun of. I wouldn't make fun of now. I'm sure I had more choice words then. And I remember I saw the Cracked Racquets Twitter account had started, and they had just had, I think, Chris Eubanks and Will Blumberg on the show. And I listened, and I was like, Dalton sucks. And I was like, no, I was like, this is really cool, though. I love what they're trying to do. We don't have access. They have access. They don't have a steady stream of content. I think I could provide that. Let me DM him and see what happens. I was in a parking lot.
And you knew him? You knew him?
It was a DM out of the blue. I didn't know him. I knew nothing about him. I saw the truth.
You didn't know his brother either?
No, I saw that they had just gotten Parsa on board. And in the early days, I didn't have a Twitter, but Parsa, Jonathan Kelly, who happens to be a good friend still to this day. Obviously you, Colette, those were the staples. Right. And I saw Parsa was joining their team, and hubris alert, I was like, if Parsa can do it, I can freaking do it. Again, choice words. And I remember where I was. I was driving back from my real job. I stopped before I got on the highway, parking lot of the Noodles and Company right off of the exit in Ann Arbor. And I called Dalton, and we talked for an hour and a half. And I was like, oh, this might be something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is something. And you guys have grown your following. I mean, it's just massive now. And you've taken what started as, a little podcast and turned it into not just a little podcast, a massive podcast with a huge audience, plus your running tournaments, plus your now getting credentialed at tournaments, and you're broadcasting live from those tournaments. You're calling matches at tournaments. And most recently, you have a new project, Project Elite, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I want to just kind of go back to the beginnings of Cracked Racquets and just tell you, if I haven't shared this with you before, I'm sharing it with you now, that when I first saw what you guys were up to, I was blown away and so thrilled to see a group of young tennis fans and former players getting involved in the business of tennis, because until the time you guys started, tennis was being run by people my age and older. There were not people who understood how to draw young fans into the sport, and y'all were it. I remember a meeting I had with the head of the tennis channel and telling him, you need to reach out to these guys. These are the people doing what tennis channels should be doing. You need to partner with them and bring them on board, because tennis has complained for years that it doesn't know how to reach young fans, how to bring new people into the sport. You guys have found the magic bullet.
Oh, well, I appreciate you saying that. Hey, you're not old. Let's be clear here, okay?
Well, I am, but that's okay.
I would say prime. You're in your prime. This is how I would argue, which is a good thing.
Okay. You know, I have a 32-year-old child, right?
Yeah, but you were a medical. They were like, you had a kid at 8. That's crazy.
Yes, that.
Yeah, exactly. As the son of an OB-GYN, I know it's possible.
Yes.
No, but I appreciate you saying that. We do a lot of different things. I think something that we talked about from the beginning, though, of course, was we do have a unique window in that I am, and I hate to say I because I say it all the time, it's 80% Daniel Westhoff at Cracked Racquets, our super producer, the man who figures out if we say, hey, we want to try and do this, he actually goes, his reaction is always, huh. Okay. And it's like, it's always that. And it's just like, give me an hour. And it's like, okay, cool. Thank you.
And Casey. He makes it happen.
No, we did a full broadcast from scratch, our camera, no tower, at this exhibition event, the Lotto Elite Pro Tennis Challenge. We got to see Gulbis, Eubanks, Romanathan, and he did it all. It's incredible. So that helps. I say it's 17% me, 1.5% Hannah, Dalton's wife. The other 1.5, I suppose, is Dalton. Other whatever, math. I think that's 100. But it does help that we're all, 30 or younger. That we're all, we all have. I mean, Dalton and Hannah are married, but for Westhoff and I, we have each other. Like, we live in Cracked Racquets headquarters together. It is a big bubble of Cracked Racquets ideas, and we are in a position right now in our lives where we're very fortunate that we can dedicate ourselves to this full time. It's 10:45 2 nights ago, and I get the message, hey, Francis Tiafoe and Andy Murray are available for a press conference, and I don't have any excuse not to go, because again, I'm fortunate enough, shout out to my parents, to be able to do this full time, and not like I have the shot. And so we like to view it as we owe it to our Cracked Racquets fans, to all of the people who have supported us, to try and do it in every avenue possible, whether that's hosting junior events, hosting college events, being on the ground at as many events as possible, to offer fans the look that they deserve at the tennis world, but also to talk about it the way that I don't think tennis is treated in the broader ecosystem. Yes, you have Tennis Channel, but I like to think, prior to the Mini Break podcast and why it has a following, is that people don't do daily shows on tennis. And if you're going to follow tennis the way the diehards do, you have to go daily, because there are 12 events in any given week. And if you let the results build up, the show's just going to suck. Like, I've done a week. The reason we have a daily show now is because I was just like, this weekly show's not working. Like, it's just, there's too much. It's too jammed in. You yell at me for talking for 2 hours. If I don't talk for 2 hours, we're not going to hit everything. So I can't do that. And we're fortunate enough here at Cracked Racquets that now we are able to go full time. And, Westhoff and I, this is our jobs, that we get to explore a bunch of different avenues. So I appreciate that other people see that, because that is really one of our goals here.
Y'all are like your own little tennis incubator, right?
That's a good way of putting it.
You live together, you work together, you brainstorm together, and then you make it happen.
I told my parents, this might tell you more about me than anything else, but super producer Daniel Westhoff and I just moved houses. and we got our own U-Haul, you know, you get the mattress things, everything. And my parents were like, they were like, what? They were like, I just told him like, yeah, Westhoff plugged in the washer and dryer. My dad was like, he plugged in the dryer. He was like, what is this sorcery? And I was like, yeah. It's like, it was crazy. And so no, I don't know how he does it. Imagine you edit my voice, you edit my face on video, you come out of your office, and then I'm your roommate in the kitchen making dinner. I'm like, hey, Daniel. And he's
Right.
just that it's his patience. It's the fact that we really, again, we get to cover tennis full time. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and you'll do an amazing job. I was really excited when I saw you get into the tournament director space, and especially on the junior side. And can you talk a little bit about that? How y'all decided to get into the tournament business and why you chose the UTR platform as the way to go?
Yeah, and
I said UTR. I have to correct myself. It is now Universal Tennis. They have undergone a rebrand, and I have to stop it. I too many years of saying the other name. It is
as
now
someone who
Universal
calls
Tennis.
our friends at Tennis Point Midwest Sports still on every
Yeah.
third podcast, I get
Yeah.
it. Totally get it. But, you know, beyond even Universal Tennis, whether it's USTA, whether it's ITA, who happens to use Universal Tennis as well, which is a big reason why we started to use them too. I mean, again, having grown up playing these tournaments, Dalton grew up playing the tournaments as well. I was very fortunate that my coaches were tournament directors. And so since I was 8 years old, I was like, let me work the board with you. Let me do all of these things. Obviously, that was when I knew I should be a podcaster in tennis moving forward. But just innately, tennis tournaments are very dry. They're very bland. There's not
Yeah.
a lot of investment. It's a lot of times for tournament directors. And I hate to brush with the broad strokes, but I get it, especially when you're running a tournament every other weekend. You're just trying to get through the finish line. Like you
Sure.
get to that Saturday at noon and you are like, oh my God, what? We still have 3 sessions left today of matches to go on. And the last wave's not going on till 5. Like this sucks.
And there's rain in the forecast.
Exactly. What are we going to do? But again, this really helps that we're all pretty young and like we all have the energy to be like, okay, if it's worth it for us if it's 3 days of just max energy, trying to ensure these players have a good time playing these events. And, you know, I really don't cuss this often, but we had an incident at an ITA event where this 15-year-old was playing a senior in college or a rising senior in college. And they called out a line judge, and I was the line judge that was called out to the court. And
Are you a certified official too?
I have a lot of skills. Let me just say that.
Oh my gosh, Alex.
I do
You
things.
never cease to amaze me.
Thank you. Well, in, out, vision, I can do it.
Okay.
It's like a driver's test. And by the way, like a driver's license, officials should be pulled after 75 because we've got some issues. But so
I don't think you're going to get any argument from the Parenting Aces audience on that one.
Exactly. But I know my audience. I know how to butter the bread. But this 15-year-old loses a point, and the fist pump from the college kid goes directly at him because he's trying to get in his head because he's older. And in the most amazing moment I've ever seen on a tennis court, the 15-year-old drops his racket, looks at the kid and goes, hey, man, F you. You can't talk to me like that. And I was both shocked and like, I was kind of impressed. I was like, good for you. Like, way to stand up for yourself. And then I was like, all right, both of you bring it in. I was like, we're not doing this anymore. I was like, we don't have to have a winner in this match. I can win it. Like, you guys can be defaulted and that's fine, but we're not doing that anymore. I was like, I'm not going to code you, but if you do that again, you're done. Like that, you can't do that. And to the other kid, I was like, and you know what you're doing. And so, and I think it helps to have a 25-year-old telling them that, to be like someone who's I'm not antagonizing them. They both know what just happened. And I think that is why kids come back and play our events, because we try and create that environment. I had a parenting ace, let me tell you, was this line. She goes, hey, you guys have gotten some things wrong this weekend, but I think you guys have created a really fun environment, and it's clear the kids are loving themselves. And I said, ma'am, some people give compliments, but a backhanded compliment is rare. So I really appreciate that. And she started laughing. And it's just like, we can have a dialogue with the kids because we're close enough in age with them that they feel comfortable. We can also have a dialogue with the parents because we have seen 10,000 tournaments and we are prepared for the scenario. So that's part
Well,
of the
and
reason.
you're the ones running it. So,
Yeah.
of course, the parents are going to feel comfortable talking to you because you're the one making the decision.
I like to think so. Some of them have come up to me and given me looks like, this is real? This is day 3 of this act? And I'm like, yeah, sorry, it's part of the gig.
Yeah.
But no, we try to have fun, and that's half the game.
Well, and I can say too that just, from experience being the tennis parent at these events, that the way you handled that conflict between the 15-year-old and the college player, I mean, don't you wish officials had handled conflicts like that for you when you were coming up? I can't tell you, how many frustrating experiences. And my kid, he had a temper. He was a bracket thrower and a 4-letter word thrower too. And instead of like having a conversation, most of the time, and there are exceptions for sure, but most of the time the officials were not trying to help the players resolve their issues, whatever they were, whether it was conflict with each other or just internal conflict. They were out there to just, code violations, suspension points, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and that doesn't make it fun.
No, that's exactly it. The officials are there to officiate, and it's a serious role. But sometimes it shouldn't be that serious. This isn't the U.S. Open. It's a weekend event. Like, there is not life or death in this ITA result. And
Right.
while I am eternally grateful to all of the sportsmanship awards I still have on my tennis bag for all of the umps I sucked up to over the years, yeah, it helps when you can have an actual dialogue with a referee, when you feel comfortable saying, you understand why I'm doing this, right? Because I don't think it's right that he's acting like this. And I can say, yes, I see that. I will talk to him, but come to me. It's inappropriate for you to do that on court. And you know that. To which the kid says, yeah, you know what? If you will talk to him, that's fair. That's fine. That's all I ask. And that's all a kid wants to hear in the moment as well. It's just like, you understand my sense of grievance in this moment. And I do, because I've played that match not that long ago. And so not saying these officials, because a lot of these officials do play in leagues now, but they're a little bit removed from the feeling of the exact feeling of what these kids are going through. And I think at Cracked Racquets, that's something, getting into Project Elite, is we understand what these kids are trying to do.
So there, you just provided the segue for me. Thank you very much. I was trying to come up with a cool way to do that. What's Project Elite?
Well, I would
And
like
let
to
me just say, we have written about it on ParentingAces.com. So those of you who want to know a little more, we've got links and all that for you on ParentingAces.com. But go ahead, Alex.
Well, are you sure? As long as you promise, I can go back and talk about the 2017 Club Tennis National Championships, because
Yes, you can.
When I say Rothman and I played a perfect match against Georgia Tech, my older brother came up to me and he goes, Alex, I didn't know you were actually good at tennis until today. And I was like, Eric, I didn't know it either. I was like, did you see that? He goes, you had this reaction ball. He goes, I've never seen you make that ball. It's like, I know, man. It was great. Anyway.
Wait, who'd you play at Tech?
I don't remember the kids' names.
Oh, come on.
You don't remember the bagels. You don't remember, though. You're like, we showed up, we kicked.
But it's probably somebody I know from Atlanta.
Oh, they were the sweetest. I don't remember. I wish I remembered them. Yeah, I remember the Harvard kid who subbed in down 5-1 because there were substitutions, and they're like, we're going to put a hold on the board here, and we broke them. And it was like, I just remember laughing and be like, anyways, so Project Elite, where does this come from? All of this, with the new NIL ruling, and I know you talked about it in the intro, but there's a lot of uncertainty right now in college tennis, no doubt about that, and what these rules mean, what opportunities are going to be created for these athletes. And I think we just talked about it at the tournaments. When we hold the Cracked Racquets event, when we do our coverage of the college tennis season, we try to actually get to know these athletes. We try to get to know the coaches, and that's something we've been super fortunate to be able to do here. And I joked about it earlier. These coaches send me gear now. I want them to, because not only do I enjoy having the gear, but I enjoy representing these schools. I enjoy just representing college tennis, what it means to so many of these athletes, because you talk to all of them. When you are in the college tennis ecosystem, you are fully invested in the sport. Sure. It is a full-time job. It is, you are not only trying to make grades and you're trying to have a life on campus, but, to compete at the highest levels of college tennis now, you have to be practicing overtime. Yes, of course, there are limits, but you have to be doing the individual work if
Not
you want to
even at the
continue.
highest levels, at
Yeah,
pretty much any level of college
exactly.
tennis.
D2, D3, it doesn't matter right now. To be,
Right.
I guess I was trying to say to be the best of the best in your conference, to be the
Yeah.
best of the best in whatever your little competitive bubble is. It takes work now because the standard in college tennis is immensely high. Of course, as such, that means these players are really, really good. And I mean, I can give you the numbers. The obvious examples of late have been John Isner, Kevin Anderson, who've been the flag bearers forever. Steve Johnson belongs in that conversation as well. But you look at up and down the rankings, guys like Mackie McDonald, guys like Marco Chiron, guys like Jensen Brooksby, Brandon Nakashima, and I can go on and on of the list of players who are now making successful transitions. That's just the men's side, by the way. Obviously, on the women's side, there are countless other examples who are having success in the pro game as they make that transition. And I mean, we've seen it at Cracked Racquets. I know for a fact 40,000 people watched the national indoors in 2021 at Illinois. There's a huge college tennis fan base out there that wants to embrace these athletes. And so what we want to do at Project Elite and through Project Elite is give them a mechanism to do so, is give them the chance to say, hey, we appreciate your efforts. We appreciate all you do to promote the sport. Here's our way of giving back and investing into the sport. And just, again, acknowledging and incentivizing. It just feels like a dirty word, by the way. I still don't know how to treat all of this NIL stuff because it's just built in me that it's all illegal. But just to make these athletes feel some gratification for their efforts.
Feel valued, right?
Valued,
Feel
that's the
valued.
word. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Just offer them gratification and make them feel valued for their efforts.
Yeah.
And also to help build the brand.
So Project Elite is, I mean, you're sort of acting as a marketing agency between the college tennis player and the business or alum or whoever who wants to support the college tennis player and, kind of as an adjunct to that, support college tennis in general.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly.
Now you can legally do that.
That is
because the Supreme Court said so in June.
That's absolutely it. And I will say rules still differ from state to state. Like I know in Florida, they're a lot more strict on what coaches can or can't be involved with than say Ohio with what coaches can do. I know obviously our first two athletes, Cannon Kingsley, Isabel Boulay, both play for Ohio State. I know, again, we went through the NCAA. We are following all the regulations, everything in place as it currently is written. But there's no denying that there are a lot of people out there who want to embrace these college tennis athletes. And more importantly, what we can do is use that as a mechanism to help grow the sport, to help draw more attention to college tennis, because I think case in point, it really helped that this year's national championships were really freaking good. Like that, everyone watched Pepperdine, Texas. Everyone was watching that match. And it broke through the tennis Twitter bubble in a way I had never seen college tennis do on a full scale. And, there's a lot of popularity right now in college tennis. And we at Cracked Racquets are, we think, best positioned to help capitalize on that popularity, to help show tennis fans, our fans who may listen to us for the pro action, hey, there's really good, challenger level type action or 125K level action happening each and every week during the college tennis season. We now have the assets to also, the resources, I suppose, to bring these players to these fans and say, listen every week to Cannon Kingsley. Now that you've heard him every week, well, I might as well go watch him play. Or now that I've heard Isabel Boulay, I don't know when this podcast is coming out. I know over the next few days, we'll announce Hunter Heck and Koisi Kenyatta at Illinois as our next two Cracked Racquets athletes. I've heard about the Champaign Challenger. Let me go check that out now. Right. We just think, again, to be able to offer these players resources to market what they're already doing full time, it was a no-brainer for us.
Well, and this is what's been missing from college tennis. It's missing still from junior tennis, is featuring these athletes in such a way to build a fan base around them. And you guys have stepped in and filled the hole in the sport. I've been asking for this for years. It wasn't something I knew how to do or was necessarily interested in doing, but I am thrilled that you guys have picked up the ball and started running with it. Can you share with us what is involved in becoming a Project Elite athlete? What criteria do you guys use to determine that you want to work with somebody? And what are the athletes looking for from you in order to determine whether or not they want to sign that contract?
Yeah, I will preface by saying it is all still very fluid. Obviously,
Sure.
like any new project
I mean,
Elite.
let me just interrupt. We are recording this the end of August. US
Okay.
Open qualies is going on right now. By the time this airs, US Open will be over. So go ahead.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that. And honestly, 2 weeks from now, Project Elite may be rebranded. It's just going to be called Project Lisa. But
Perfect.
yeah, exactly. But no, the truth is, again, part of this is a resource driven thing. We only have so many resources at our disposal to promote as many athletes as we can. Now, the long-term goals for Project Elite, of course, is not just starting on the college side, but it's starting on the recruiting side as well, letting these athletes know as they enter college, hey, here are the schools that quite frankly can do the most for you. Because once you become a college athlete, that school is going to extract every ounce out of you. And I'm not trying to diminish that process or, speak negatively about college tennis. Me saying the college is going to extract every ounce out of you is not a demonstrement of the process. Yeah, exactly. That's just how college tennis works.
Yeah.
What we at Cracked Racquets feel an obligation to do is help not only the athletes, but the parents themselves know, hey, at this school, these are the resources available to you. At this school, these are the resources available to you. And hey, these are the caliber of athletes both on and off the court. This is what they are accomplishing through the resources made available to them by going to this program. And so
and by the way, this is outside athletic scholarship money. We are talking outside of that package of financial help. This is now the athletes are able to capitalize financially on the fact that they are collegiate athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we believe long term, and this is the idea, as soon as we can get as many athletes on board as we can. And I want to get back to I'm not trying to avoid your question. What are we looking for from the athlete perspective?
I'll bring you back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But look, when we have a comfortable list of athletes that we think represent not only Cracked Racquets well, but the best of what college tennis can offer, not just on the court, but of course what they're representing off the court as well. We hope to be able to go to a sponsor, to say a Wilson or a Head or just, any sort of tennis invested company and say, hey, we think we would like your brand to be associated with Cracked Racquets athletes. Here's why it's beneficial for you. Because you're going to see the entire college ecosystem now using this product, because that's what a Cracked Racquets athlete is you use Wilson and you do this and you get 3.8 GPA because, much like my Jewish parents, high standards for Cracked Racquets athletes, of course, scholar athlete or bust. But just again,
is that written into the contract, by the way?
That is no scholar athlete requirement yet.
Okay.
No scholar. I mean, yeah, Dalton's going to hear me say that.
I was about to cheer
it's going to be
you really loudly, Alex, as a Jewish mama.
Yeah, believe me. Maybe. No, there's no way. That's just not, because you can't say what everyone's background
That's not your role.
You know what? We're going to do it. No, it just, again, but that is something we absolutely look for. And of course, How do you engage with college tennis fans? Are you someone who has been outwardly, spoken outwardly about your college tennis experiences? Is that something you're comfortable doing as well? And this gets back to, again, what are we looking for from these athletes? Not only someone who can represent us well, obviously on-court results, cannons, Isabel speak for themselves, but people who represent what we think college tennis epitomizes, the energy associated with the sport, the fact that the epitomizing of the team culture. Again, we're going to get a guy in Koisi Kenyatta who, played some one doubles for Illinois last year, but was mostly at the 5 and 6 singles position. Not a lineup superstar by any measure of the word, but a guy who epitomizes everything as college tennis is about. Just the energy he brings, his enthusiasm for his teammates. That's someone we want representing as a Cracked Racquets athlete, because that's what college tennis can be for so many of these players. That's what club tennis was for me, and I try and relate it to the college experience. I think that's why I've grappled onto the sport so closely, is you just find out who you are as a person. And really that's what we hope this Cracked Racquets this Project Elite can be for these Cracked Racquets athletes, is just provide them an opportunity to say, hey, here's what I'm comfortable with. This is who I am. let me show myself to the college tennis world, and you will be embraced.
Do you see reaching out to club tennis players too?
That's long term. I mean, Dalton would say no because he's like, we have one of you already. I think we're good. But I would say for now we're focused on, again, Division I,
Varsity.
Division II, Division III.
Sure.
Now varsity, that's the way to put it exactly. But it is not Division I. We are looking to get Division II, Division III as well, get going off the ground. We do have an application process right now. You can go to project-elite.com, symbol, not the spelling, project-elite.com to learn more about it. But again, part of it is also going to be a resource-based thing. It certainly helps when, specific schools, specific donors can say, hey, I am looking to sponsor this student to become a Cracked Racquets athlete. Can you make that happen? And the answer to that question now is yes. So a big part is going to be from the Cracked Racquets and the college tennis fan community, is we are looking for their assistance in doing this as well, because we want to support as many players as we can. We don't want it to just be the big schools and the big money programs, dare I say. But no, that our intention for Project Elite is, again, to have as many athletes as possible representing the Cracked Racquets brand, because we are committed to college tennis and we want to do as much for these athletes as we can.
And so will you be connecting them directly with financial sponsors, or will you be taking a commission off that? I mean, what's the business model here?
It's part of it is purposeful ignorance. I leave some of that to Dalton. I don't want to be put in a position, because I do the majority of our coverage of college tennis. And again, I'm not trying to cop out here, although.
Well, I was going to go down that path, but so go ahead.
Well, no, as a parenting ace, my dad's like, this is good lawyering. Well done, Alex. But part of it is because I cover the coaches, because I cover all of these schools closely. I want to still be able to have relationships with these players where the coaches aren't thinking, well, that's X is paying you, so that's why you talk fondly of them. And it's like, no, everyone knows my bias is towards Michigan because that's where I went, and that's my one, and that's my only one. And people don't have to worry about that. But the truth is, I know people who are supporting Project Elite get in contact with Dalton. And, again, that is the key, whether you are a donor, whether you are a player, people who are interested in Project Elite, is to contact us at Cracked Racquets. And again, everything, my ignorance is not meant to say because anything's below board. Everything is above board. We are in compliance with every rule and regulation, because the last thing in the world we would want to do is compromise any of these athletes moving forward. And so, of course, that is something we are certainly focused on. But the idea, again, for us in particular, is to have the Cracked Racquets athlete mean something to the point where a Wilson, for the long-term goal, or some sort of sponsor in the tennis world, I should have said Tennis Point, I can't believe I didn't, comes to us and says, we would like all Cracked Racquets athletes to rock Tennis Point merch, to be Tennis Point representatives. And, again, that is something we are actively pursuing. That is something, hopefully, when this airs in 2 weeks, you will have already heard an announcement about. But that would be the long-term goal, for just to have a Cracked Racquets athlete mean something.
Right. Are you looking at the athlete's social media following? I know, that's one of the things that's been talked about a lot with NIL is, how many Instagram followers, how many TikTok followers, yada, yada. I also, when I was at National Hard Courts, I was at the girls 16s and 18s. A lot of the coaches there were saying, well, it's going to be a lot easier for the women to get these endorsements, these sponsorships, because the things they're posting on their social media, they're, a little bit sexy, and, sponsors are after that because it attracts followers. How are you handling all those things? Because that made me a little uncomfortable, I have to say.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation to have. There's no denying those are things that stand out to us. How many Twitter followers? How engaged are you and active on Instagram? Because that is the way you get messages out to consumers. And
it's just the way businesses run these days.
First and foremost, these Cracked Racquets athletes, we are still a company. We still have advertisements to sell. We still have things we have to get out there. And obviously, as part of the Cracked Racquets team, that's something we are asking and expecting out of these athletes. There is going to be a commitment from them. If you're, that is part of the NILs. Yes, they get to profit off of their name, image, and likeness, but it's not a free ride. That is one of these things these regulations prevent, is just a free ride for these kids. But no, it's an uncomfortable thing. I would say, number one, at least for us, I think talent is just, you put on court results, we're going to notice. Like Cannon Kingsley, who's 27-0 through the regular season, that's a no-brainer. Like, of course, that's an easy Cracked Racquets. And, Isabelle Boulay, all Big Ten, and her and Coley Allen were, I think, like 37 in the country, and they were lost like 3 times on the year. That's an easy thing for us.
Right.
But it's definitely an uncomfortable thing to say, because I think it works both ways. If you're an attractive woman, if you're an attractive man, your followers are going to be higher just in general. That's how social media works. And I think that's something, I'm still going to be the most attractive person at Cracked Racquets. No one's worried about that. But second to Daniel Westhoff. But I would say, yes, it's definitely, because less about the followers than about the activity. Are you good at social media? If you're funny and you just haven't been utilized enough, well, here's the money. We now want to utilize you. Be funny. We are paying you to show your personality. But absolutely, I would say social media consciousness more than social media following would be the how we approach that.
So you guys are actually paying the athletes. Is that the deal? And then how are you going to make money from this? Is it through the sponsorships? Do you know?
Well, I do know.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, part of it is like, I should have asked Dalton what he wants me to say or not say. No, he doesn't care. Now we have a very open relationship here at Cracked Racquets. He's going to slap me in the face, win or lose. So no, I know, again, sponsorships, yes, long term, of course, that's a big part of this moving forward. But I commission system's the wrong word. I know there is some, it's not, middleman's the wrong word as well. I know we are making money in the process.
You're an agent.
Yeah, that's a good way
to take a percentage.
But a legal agent, because again,
absolutely.
Yeah, I do think that's how it works.
I hope I'm not insinuating that anything.
No, you're not. It's I said this at the beginning. It just feels unkosher still, because for my first 25 years of life, I was told, you pay a college athlete, you're going to prison. We have seen people go to prison for doing this, and it's not illegal anymore. And I think, again, part of the reason people are comfortable working with Cracked Racquets, if I don't mind, pushing us up a little bit, is we have a degree of credibility within the college tennis world now. Not only have these players seen me, these coaches have seen me at events. They saw me at the national championships. They have talked to me in person. They know if they have any questions or they're uncomfortable with anything, to just call us and say, well, this is a little bit, sketchy. What's going on here? And we can have candid conversations, be like, we didn't know, or we did know. And so, again, that's part of this. It's still the very early stages just for how NIL is going to be received in general. But no, I do think, again, why we wanted to act as, for lack of a better term, an agent to these players is because they are comfortable with the Cracked Racquets brand. They know by working with us, and to go full circle here, they are promoting college tennis, which is ultimately the goal through Project Elite, is just to let as many athletes know, whether you're in the junior stage, whether you are within the sport, hey, there are people who care. And then the more, people who see within the college tennis world in the early junior stages, even later on afterwards, after you've become a Cracked Racquets athlete and gone through college, you'll still feel committed. I think I've shared this theory with you when you were on the podcast. Like, if you're an Ivy League school, there are at least 10 alums who have enough disposable income that you should have a pot of $100,000 to be paying your athletes with for the next 5 years, because it should not be that hard to raise money and reward these athletes if you have the alums to do it. And so that's part of the reason we wanted to get in early as well, is with all these early developments, as things become more aware, as players and coaches just become better at negotiating these rules, we want to be best positioned to help these players be ready right off the ground to say, all right, let's rock and roll.
Yeah, no, I love it. And frankly, you guys are positioned to shape how this whole thing unfolds over the next year or two. I think it's really cool that you're involved early. You're not just thinking in the short term, how can we make money off this, but how can we grow college tennis? How can we, make college tennis fan friendly? How can we engage alums better? Because this has been one of my big gripes about college tennis, and, it's kind of fallen on deaf ears, but, why aren't alums more involved in marketing their college tennis programs? I mean, it's absurd to me that they wouldn't want to push those programs and build the fan base and all of that.
How
So
about the rule?
I love what y'all are doing.
I appreciate it. Sorry, first of all, I should never cut off a compliment, but I appreciate you saying that. How about the rule that the pro tennis players aren't allowed to wear their college gear during matches,
Right.
like because it's free advertising? That's asinine. That's
Yeah.
just absurd that we are at a point. If Ty Kwiatkowski's wearing a Virginia hat, that's against the rules. Like, are you kidding me? He was an NCAA champion there. If
Right.
Noah Rubin can go play the Winston, we're totally fine with Wake Forest giving Winston-Salem giving wild cards to the entire Wake Forest team. But the moment they put on a Demon Deacon shirt, they're out. Like, and by the way, can we just talk from one Vildachai to another? Noah Rubin as a Demon Deacon will never make me comfortable. Like, I texted him. I was like, Noah, like, how did you, because I know at one point he really did want to go to Michigan. I was like, you would have been the best Michigan athlete. How did you not end up as a Wolverine? Jewish from New York? Like, you would fit hand in a glove. Instead, he's a Demon Deacon. But that, because all of that is to say, I agree with you. I full-throatedly agree with you. And I do think with these, you don't think John Isner's going to have the Georgia players ready to rock and roll now that he can have the Georgia players ready to roll? Although I think there's a rule, if you are a donor to the program, you can't be an NIL donor or something. Like,
what?
It's really stupid. Again, there are still some stupid rules in place. That's the other thing, is like that is why we really wanted to do this, is there are some stupid rules in place that people aren't aware of. But one thing we know is within the rules is for these players to become Cracked Racquets athletes. So again, to provide them a mechanism to know that they're above board, we're doing our job.
Yeah. And so I've got the Project Elite link up on the screen for those of you with kids currently playing college tennis or in the recruiting process looking to play college tennis. Check out Project Elite. It is a way to supplement or replace or just be a great source of revenue for your player as they're on campus doing their thing as a student athlete. And it's something new that wasn't available before, but it is now. And Alex Gruskin and Cracked Racquets have jumped on this opportunity and are there to help your player maximize their NIL opportunities as well. So, Alex, it's been a pleasure. I always love chatting with you. I feel like we've talked so much recently, and it's just so fun. And I love watching what y'all are doing. Keep up the great work. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope we didn't wake up the housemates, but
first of all, again, it's just Westhoff, and he's used to it. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, as always, I appreciate you for having me. I hope I didn't double fault too much on the Parenting Aces show, but I do. I would say it's true. I have talked to you more than my own mother in the past 2 weeks, and I'm not.
Maybe I should start calling you my pod son.
Oh, there's nothing I'd be more glad. Do I need to shave? Is that what you're telling me?
No, you're adorable. Keep
it
just like it
thank
is.
you. I appreciate that, but thank you for having me, Lisa. Obviously, I do want to point out your coverage of San Diego, exceptional. We had you on our Great Shot podcast to break down that event, talk a little bit more about NIL. So if you want to hear more of Lisa and I chatting, go check that out. Of course, all the content, crackedrackets.com. But thank you, as always, Lisa, for having me.
Thanks for coming on. To my listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.